Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Genius Podcast. My name is Karen Doyle, your host and founder of the Genius Project. The Genius Project is an initiative for Catholic women to support and resource you towards growth in all areas of life, spiritual, personal, and professional. If you'd like to find out about any of our initiatives, you can visit our website at www.geniusproject.co. If you enjoy this episode, can I invite you to share the link with your friends and to come and follow us on Instagram, genius_project_daily, and also subscribe to the Genius Project YouTube channel. Now, just a heads up, over the last couple of weeks, I have been hacked and the hacker has created absolute havoc on the Genius Project YouTube channel. They've taken the videos down and deleted a whole heap of subscribers. So we're just building that back up now. We need to upload all the videos again. It's a real pain in the backside. So please pray for our mission and what we're doing here at the Genius Project to support Catholic women. Now, on this week's episode of the Genius Podcast, I am joined by Jess Schepis. Jess is a very beautiful woman from Melbourne here in Australia, and we're going to be talking around this topic of how to have meaningful friendships and connections. Well, Jess, welcome to the Genius Podcast. It's so wonderful to have you joining us today all the way from Melbourne. I think only 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago we were together in Melbourne?
Yes,
2 or 3?
2 weeks ago.
Two,
I think. I don't know.
Fun. Anyway, welcome to the Genius Podcast. We can share a little bit about that trip in a moment. It's so good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Finally, it took us a few times, but we're here.
I know, like third time lucky. We had
Indeed.
the internet out one time and then I lost my voice and anyway, we're here and it's good. And today we're going to be talking about this topic of friendship, and not just friendship, but meaningful connection and meaningful friendship and sisterhood, because it's such an important part of all of our lives. Like, we are created in for relationships. So we really crave and we are designed for relationship. But, you know, as you know, some women don't have that blessing in their life. And we're just going to talk around this topic today. But you and I both had a beautiful experience 2 weeks ago in Melbourne of catching up with each other.
We did.
It was so much fun.
It was wonderful, and a wonderful surprise for you and for us too.
I know.
It was, I tell you what, Jonathan, he's just amazing, Karen.
He's a good husband.
He is. We got emails, and we tried to sort it all out, and we all love you so much, so we all wanted to make sure that we could be there, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful couple of hours. It's never long enough, because I feel like just as much as we started to get into some good conversation, we had to leave, but it's okay. God bless us with that couple of hours, and it was lovely to
and fill the viewers in. It was Jonathan and my 22nd wedding anniversary, and Jonathan surprised me with a trip to Melbourne, and at lunch he organised for yourself and Alyssa, Roxanne and Therese Nichols to surprise me in the hotel, and he sent us off to lunch together. It was such a beautiful gift. So
it was
I was so surprised. I had absolutely no idea. So I didn't even know where we were going until I was sitting on the plane that morning. And it was just, oh my gosh, it was so nice just to get away with him. But then the experience of connecting with you women just filled my cup so much.
It was
really
good.
Special.
Yeah. And as for us as well, we don't get a chance to obviously see you in person very much. So it was lovely to actually do that.
Yeah, it was really special. So let's give the viewers a little bit of background into, I guess, your story and how you and I came to meet each other. Would you fill us in on that?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up a practicing Catholic. We would attend every weekend with my family, and I was 7 years old when I was plucked out of the congregation by beautiful Sister Helen and asked to join the choir. And up until maybe 3 years ago, I was actually still part of that choir in my old parish. So a good 30 years. But yeah, I went to World Youth Day in 2005 in Cologne, and that really catapulted my faith. I came back with just this eagerness and this absolute joy in my heart and this consolation. And I just basically saw joy everywhere, which was lovely. And I was holding on to that for quite a few years. And then I met my husband, my now husband, Phil. And, I guess I kind of moved away a little bit. I was still attending. We got married, and then I actually moved obviously out of home to a different suburb. I was still attending church weekly, but then that kind of dropped off quite a lot once our first child was born, Leah, 8 years ago. Obviously, first-time mum, so that's challenging just to even get out of the door.
Yes.
So let alone even go to mass, and you're just concerned about a crying baby and not knowing how to deal with it, amongst all the other anxieties that you have about being a first-time mum. And then, Julia came along, and then that was a struggle. Julia was quite a hard, we had first 6 months were quite challenging. She had some tummy issues and she wasn't feeding well, and lots of sleepless nights and sore backs and things like that. But I just remember quite a significant moment. I was feeding her overnight some stage, and I just remember looking at her and just thinking, I love you, but I don't have that feeling. That feeling is missing. And it kind of came to me that I needed to get back to music ministry in a parish, not necessarily the one that I came from, but in a parish. And so I kind of made a bit of a resolution. I'm like, right, I'm going to go down to my local, check it out. And I did, and they had a wonderful youth choir. Sorry, not youth, because I'm way past that stage. It was a young adults choir, the youth choir, young at heart. Young adults. I think I was still a little bit too old for, but they let me in graciously anyway. And then I started there, and I just knew I had that spark back. I knew that this is what God was calling me to do, and to use my gifts and talents to his glory. And that was the way to do it. So that kind of got me back going to church, somewhat weekly. And then they had like a mentoring masterclass. And I walked in, and one of my beautiful friends, Alyssa, was sitting on the table, and I had seen her face in a publication a couple of weeks before that. So I knew her face, but I couldn't exactly pinpoint exactly where from. And then after the session, she looked at me and she's like, did you go to this school? And I said, yes. And she's like, oh my goodness, so did I. And then we just started talking.
Wow.
And this was probably late 2019. So then, we got home and we added each other on Facebook, and we started all of that, and we started talking. And the wonderful thing was that after my experience of World Youth Day in 2005 in Cologne, I went back to my old high school at an assembly, and I spoke about my experience.
Wow.
And she was a student at the time, and she was sitting there, and she heard my speech, and she told me that my speech is what made her want to go to Sydney World Youth Day.
Wow.
And, many years.
That's amazing. And then all those years later, reconnecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know if you're actually going to touch anyone when my words are actually going to, filter into anyone's heart, or, open up anyone's heart. But obviously it did. And obviously I didn't find out until many, many years later when we reconnected, which was really special. And then beginning of 2020, no one can forget that, when COVID came and disrupted all of our lives. And then through that, I met, through Alyssa, I met the beautiful Roxanne, and we started chatting, about all the craziness and trying to get, make sense of what was happening and all the lockdowns, one of many in Melbourne. And look, we've kind of been inseparable ever since. So
You're
it's
a
a wonderful
deal.
We are. We do. We come in 3. We tell that to everybody. If you want one of us, you're going to have all of us.
Which is great, because it's just, oh my goodness, the chemistry between the 3 of you is something to behold and experience, which Yvonne and I got to do when we hosted the Real Women series in Canberra. The 3 of you flew up, and each of you were guests on that program, which was beautiful. So it was lovely to have that time in the studio with each one of you. But I thoroughly enjoyed last week just being around a table, sharing life. And I just got an insight into how much fun it would be to live in Melbourne with you 3.
It is great. We do love each other's company, obviously, but we have a great time when we're together.
You do. But even more than that, what you've done for one another is to, I guess, deepen and draw one another into deeper relationship with Christ. And that has been one of the beautiful fruits of your friendship, that each of you, or 3 of you, have deepened in your faith, in your faith walk, and also in your support of each other. And I guess also discovering a deeper sense of your own personal mission and purpose.
Indeed. Yep, absolutely. I can pretty much give you a timeline of, when I met these beautiful women and the fruits of that friendship. You know, obviously met Alyssa and then met Roxanne. But then I'd never picked up a rosary before I'd met Alyssa, you know, so there was that. I started praying the rosary. And then, you know, we would talk every day. So all the struggles and things that we were having during COVID and during lockdowns and during homeschooling and, you know, working from home, which was everything was just disrupted in our worlds. And we would speak every day, and we would just kind of guide each other through it and say, you know, we're praying for you and everything. But then, you know, so started praying the rosary, and then I would obviously start changing myself. I would have Christ at the center of my day, the center of my life more. And I guess COVID in a way was a bit of a blessing because I had time, I had extra time, and I'd always wanted to, I guess, delve deeper into my faith. You know, a primary school, secondary school faith formation probably wasn't very good. You know, it was very basic, you know, what you learn at, you know, in preparing for your sacrament. And then in high school, look, let's face it, high school, I think my RE class was either a bludge or we did meditation or something in BCE. And it wasn't even anything remotely to do with religion.
No, and there's actually not, is there? Like, I mean, more and more students are leaving Catholic schools without the faith.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we're not catechizing, we're not diving deep into this formation of what it means to flourish as a human person.
Exactly. So yeah. So I wanted that. Like my heart was like, I was thirsting for it. I was thirsting for scripture. God had put it on my heart that it's like, I want you to learn more. So I did, you know, I found an old catechism, tiny little one that I think was in a World Youth Day pack actually, that I opened up for the first time. And I started reading and highlighting. I'm like, oh, wow, I had no idea about any of this stuff. And, you know, you start jumping on the internet and you start reading books and start reading, you know, stories about the saints and their lives. So previous to this time, I haven't done any of that, you know, so to have that distinct starting point, you know, when I met Alyssa and Roxanne, and then, you know, to now, that was a kind of the pivotal moment, really, you know, and then obviously you can't, the fruits that this actually does for the rest of the people around you. You know, my husband has come back to the faith, praise God, you know, and we're going to mass weekly as a family. And I'm teaching my girls who are 8 and Leah's 8 and Julia's 5, almost 6. I'm teaching them about the faith. And, you know, I had a parent-teacher interview with Leah's teacher yesterday. And one of the things that she actually said to me, she said her faith, she said her knowledge of the faith and the saints and, you know, even particularly Holy Week that just passed. She's like, I even had to look up something myself because I wasn't sure that she told me, you know, oh, this is something. She's like, oh, I'm not sure if that's, you know, I didn't know that. So when sometimes you think that you're not doing anything right, to have these little bits of consolation and little bits, you know, of people telling you, you know, you are on the right track and you're doing this. But again, let's bring it back. None of this would have happened if I didn't have those two beautiful women in my life, you know. And God obviously can foresee everything, and nothing is a coincidence. It's God places and does things in our lives on purpose. And I think he knew that we were going to need each other. We're going to have to rely on each other during COVID, because it was 2 years in Melbourne. We went through it for 2 years, I think, 6 lockdowns or 7 lockdowns.
Well, you had the longest lockdowns in the whole world.
Yeah, it was really tough. So as much of a blessing it was in that sense that I got to deepen my faith, it was also a blessing because I got to meet these beautiful women. That's probably one of the most wonderful things I think God has done in my life. Yeah. And I'm sure they'd say the same, is to bring us three together. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, it's been such a beautiful fruit too, and just your commitment to one another has been very, very beautiful to watch.
It is, yeah. And I don't think I can say that I've ever had, this friendship feels different.
Yes.
And it is different. And I think when you have Christ at the center of a friendship, it just automatically is different, you know, because you come at things and your struggles and the struggles that you bring, you know, to our conversations, their advice that they give me is about our faith, you know, suffering, you know, before I had my faith, suffering was just, oh gosh, you know, poor me, why is this happening to me? But when you add the Catholic aspect to it as well. You have a different view of suffering, and they're there to remind you of that, and to help you with those struggles. And the friendships that I've had previously, or even other friendships that I have now, I'm still friends with, high school girls and stuff, but it's just not the same. And my husband even says, he goes, that friendship is different. Even he notices that friendship is different.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because, let's go back for just a minute before we dive into that. There are so many women, and I do think that there is this real epidemic of loneliness in the world today. And I think there are so many women, I know this through sisterhood, who, like you said, they've never actually had these deep, meaningful connections and friendships with people. I've been incredibly blessed in my life. I have to say, though, going through high school, I had my cousin, but it wasn't until I came into this faith community as a young adult in college, where we set up a youth group, that I really started to develop and form those deep connections. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people today, actually. And you're right, there is a standout quality. And I think when you have connections with other female friends, there's something that emerges out of friendship, and it's this deeper concept of sisterhood. It almost feels like this is a sibling relationship where you really have each other's back in a more intimate way. And you're fighting for each other, whether it's in prayer or just to support that person. And I think that's sort of the relationship that God's really calling us to. And we spoke about this on the Real Women series, but Aristotle talks about these 3 different kinds of friendship. There's the friendship of utility, so someone that serves a purpose in your life for a time. And then he goes right up until the virtuous friendship, the friendship of the good. And that kind of friendship is the friendship that, if you're on the receiving end of that, it's the other person just wanting your good for no other reason than they want to see you flourish. They're not in that relationship to get something out of it. And I think that's where that beautiful bond of sisterhood emerges, where we enter into that friendship of the good, the virtuous friendship, where we really seek to place another before ourselves and seek their good.
Absolutely. And that's 100% how it is with us as well. There's no, our friendship isn't surrounded about, with gossip or anything like that. And it's just, when we catch up, it is for each other. It's because we love each other's company. It's because we know that God put us together, and, whether we don't really know what he's planning for us as a group yet, we see little bits and pieces that, maybe God's calling us to something, and, we work through that together. And it's just, we make an effort. We've all got very busy schedules. Alyssa with her job at FIG ministry, and then also, with her band and her gig. So it's very hard to find time there. And then, I work 4 days a week, and Roxanne works part-time as well. And then we have kids, and we have extracurricular activities and everything to do as well. But we schedule in time. It's once a fortnight, once every 3 weeks. And if it goes beyond that, we're texting each other, and we're like, we need to catch up, because our glass is dwindling, amazing. and we feel rejuvenated. And that's the thing, like, you feel your heart is full and your cup is full when we see each other, because it's a wonderful thing. And it's very hard to put into words actually what the feeling is after we do see each other. But it's definitely something beautiful.
But I think that if in our friendships, in meaningful connections, what we're actually encountering, the thing that does fill our heart, I think, is that we're encountering something of the image and the presence of God, that we are created in relationship for relationship. And so it's a foretaste, I guess, of that connection that we also yearn for with the Lord, and just that edification that happens. So just tell me, there's some people who obviously, through whether it's where they live, their physical location, or whether or not they've got certain wounds in their heart where they haven't experienced this deep sort of friendship that we're talking about. What's some advice that you might give to someone who is in that position, who perhaps hasn't experienced it, but has this deep yearning like you did before you met these girls? What are some of the things that women in this position could do?
Well, I know for me, I just prayed a lot. I just prayed that God would open a door, any door. And I think for me, that was that, yearning to go back into church and music ministry. And ultimately, that's where I met Alyssa. And then obviously everything else flowed on from that. So number one, pray for it. And I guess just kind of keep your heart open to what the Holy Spirit is kind of wanting to share with you and, where he wants to lead you. And also the sisterhood conference, which has just passed as well. And unfortunately we couldn't make it, but Alyssa was there. Try and connect with people that way as well. And also I think your local parish, I think you can I've met many wonderful women and families there as well. And I would just, prayer groups. There's also, I think there's something running in Melbourne at the moment, some talks, through some convents that the nuns of certain convents that are putting on, specifically for women. Great place to find like-minded women who love God, who love want to imitate Our Lady, and just want to deepen their faith. And I think that's quite important. I think you want to make sure that if you are yearning for that friendship, to think about what do you actually want in a friendship as well, and obviously if Christ is at the center of you, then I think you obviously want people who are like-minded as well. I think they're great. They provide great opportunities, I think, for you to meet other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And sisterhood is a great movement for that reason, because we had the national conference, but we also do the regional retreats. And then one of the beautiful fruits is these local connect groups. So women, no matter where they are, they just need one other woman, or they can contact the sisterhood movement and we can place them in a connect group where they can just meet with women. And I know in my own life, sometimes the women that you put in a group with aren't the women that you would naturally go and pick. But it's amazing how God just knows who we need and what we need at a particular season. And for myself, there's been seasons where I've been placed in groups with women who, you might not naturally be drawn to, but who have become such solid friends. And we shared some really beautiful experiences and been supportive of one another. So that's another one. I really encourage women. We'll have a link in the show notes to the sisterhood groups, because I think it's a genuine challenge. And I think in a post-COVID world, I noticed, and I heard this at Sisterhood, that women are really struggling to connect and to get back into that swing of making time for friendship, or even like knowing where to go to meet people. So it's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we touched on this in Shalom as well. And I just like to draw in those 3 points that are needed for any meaningful friendship. Do you remember you mentioned those?
Was it the 3 Ps?
Yes.
Are they the ones? Ps. I think I've got them written down here somewhere, Karen.
They were really good.
Yeah, actually.
So the 3 things that you need for meaningful connection are?
Yeah, proximity, presence, and persistence.
Yeah.
So, we're, praise God, we're blessed that we all live within about 20 minutes of each other. So that helps. And when we're together, we are present with each other, and we're there for each other. It's not that friendship where, I don't know, you catch up once every couple of months and then you go back and then you separate and you go back to your own lives and you never hear that person again until, actually I haven't, until you text them in a couple of months to, want to catch up. We are present in our lives fully. And they're, apart from my husband, they're the first people that I want to share any type of news with. If I'm struggling with something, I will speak to them and ask their advice and guidance, whether it be motherhood or, certain little things in your marriage kind of thing. They're the people that I want to share my joys with, and when I do, they're just so happy. There's no jealousy. They are fully 100% happy for me, and I for them as well when they share wonderful news. And persistence. Look, definitely that's needed as well, but that just comes so easy for us. We just want to spend time with each other, so we put that very high up on our list to make sure that we actually do put in the time to see each other, and just because I don't know, it's just wonderful when we do.
Yes. It's so important. And I think being aware of that, because you can live in close proximity to people, but you can get so busy with your life that you don't see each other very often. And so I think you touched on this earlier. It's just about that intentionality, like carving out intentional time for friendship. And, in our masterclass, we talk about, I guess, the different areas of women's lives that we looked at, this area of connection and female friendship relationship, just how important it is. We do enter a season as women where life does become busy. You add a couple of children or a career and it starts to snowball. And in that busyness, we can fall into the temptation of letting go of some of the things that don't seem that important,
Mm-hmm.
but actually have deep spiritual significance for us. And I think friendship is definitely one of those arenas, those areas of our life that we need to be really intentional about carving out. One other point that I'd like to make is sometimes if we really crave that sort of friendship and we can't find it, often say to people, what kind of friend would you like? And then go and be that kind of friend to
Mm-hmm.
others. And sort of looking at cultivating, I guess, the skills of friendship. Like, how do you actually do friendship? What are those little things that build meaningful connection? And I'd be interested to hear from you, your thoughts on what are some of the skills that you think are really important for those deep, meaningful connections?
Oh goodness, that's a bit of a tough one. I don't think I've ever actually thought thought
It,
about that.
you touched on it a couple of times that I picked up on it. One was around gossip. Like
Yes.
one of the skills is learning just to sometimes keep things in check and to hold someone else's confidence.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a very important skill.
Yeah, indeed. And, I've definitely had friendships where the entire time we've caught up is just surrounding gossip. That's pretty much the entirety of it. And there comes a point, I think, in your life where you're like, or they're there and they're on their phone. They're constantly,
Yes.
checking their phone. I'm sitting right there, or, I run a phone call and I can hear that they're distracted because I can hear, the keyboard.
Yes.
Someone's typing on the
I
keyboard.
know.
And
I
I'm
hate
like,
that. I
yeah.
really hate that.
And I'm just like, if you're gonna call me and you want to speak to me, then perhaps maybe give me that time, and I don't like this. This actually happened. I've always felt that it was like one of those diary things, or once a week or once a fortnight, call Jess just to check in and see how she's going. But I don't think there was any depth to it either. It was just very shallow. How you going? How's this? How's the work? Yeah, great. Okay, speak to you later. Bye. And I got to a point, I think, also where it got a little bit frustrating and annoying because, I could hear that person wasn't actually paying attention. And I don't think cared very much about what I was going through or what I wanted to say because they were distracted typing on a keyboard or, if I was face to face with them, they were touching their phone or checking their phone or, scrolling through something. And I just would sit there and I would think, well, why are we here then if you don't want to actually spend time with me and talk to me?
Yeah.
So definitely that. Anything else? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head.
I think one thing that you girls are really good at is this meaningful conversation. And it's sort of going below that surface level of, like you were saying, that superficial level of what's happening, how's the weather,
yeah,
you're doing this. They're like, how are you really going? Like, how's your faith? How are you growing in your faith this week? Or what book have you read? Or what revelation has God given you this week to help you grow? And I think some of those questions, like, yes, we all yearn to be seen, known, loved for who we are. But I think that we can actually become bearers of Christ's image in how we go out to others in friendship, because it's very much that two-way street. So I think one of the skills that women can grow in is learning to ask meaningful questions that lead to meaningful connection.
Absolutely. I think for us, what was, I don't think we were kind of just thrown into this situation in a way, COVID was rife. No one knew what was going on. There was definitely lots of conversation about that. But then our friendship started very, in a very, very bad time, I suppose, for the world and for what was happening. So we very quickly, I think, we weren't never, I think, on that shallow level. I think very quickly we were diving straight into some of these the deep straight away because our lives were just completely turned upside down. And so, it stayed with us. It's one of those friendships where, when you just meet someone and it just feels like you've been friends for your whole life.
Yes.
We've only known each other for a good 3 years. And when we go to mass together and, we know our priests are our friends and they're like, you've only known each other for 3 years. They cannot believe, because we've probably we've fit a lifetime of friendship and packed it into 3 years. We know the ins and outs of each other, and like I said previously, they're the first people that I want to that I want to speak to. And, and the gifts that and the way that they speak and the way that they live out their faith is so inspiring. Roxanne has this amazing trust in the Lord, and that helps me. She's, sold homes and couldn't find a rental. And she's like, it's okay. God's got it. I trust in him. And I just sit here going, man, I would be freaking out right now. She's like, nope, I'm all good. God's going to provide. There's nothing that he can't do. And I'm like, wow, that deep trust, just it was there. And of course, God provided and they found something, and then even when they had to buy their home, the same thing, they were, no, this isn't for us, this isn't for us, but I know God's got the right one for us and we're just going to wait. And I'm just like, wow, like just beautiful. And that obviously feeds into my life as well.
Yes.
And then
it's that edification.
Absolutely.
I think that's a very important element.
Yeah, of course. And Alyssa's the same, she has our dream job. We always tell her that she works for Catholic ministry, which is doing wonderful things, and she gets to travel and she gets to do all that stuff as well. But to see her bring that faith side into her, her secular world, which is, her band, yes. As well. And we've all been transformed and changed by each other. They would probably say that I sometimes perhaps say things that they wouldn't think of, or maybe some mothering advice or something else, but we're always there and we're always bouncing things off each other. And again, I'm going to bring it back to, it's the fact that it's for our ultimate good. Everything is, and it's what God, and we always remember that God has placed us together for a reason. And right now, this is that reason, is to just support each other, and then whatever comes in the future, so be it. But for now, we're just there for each other and supporting each other and helping each other along this journey.
Yeah, it's so good, Jess. So lovely. And look, one thing that I really loved about your friendship, and you've mentioned this with Alyssa, just praying the rosary, that you'd never prayed the rosary before sort of becoming friends with these women. But the fruits of that in your life, in Roxanne's life, have been incredible. Like both of your husbands came back to their faith through you women praying the rosary and being committed. And so you've transformed not only your marriage, your family, your home through that. So that's just so powerful. That's been a huge witness to me, actually.
Yeah, it's
fasting.
Yeah, it's been lovely to watch. I didn't even know what a novena was. I knew my basic prayers and, that was it. But my prayer life definitely got deeper and better as well, and it's just wonderful. God's timing is different to our timing. Phil and I have been married for 11 years and I could never get him. I couldn't get him to Mass. But through seeing me deepen my faith and, teaching our girls and obviously stir something in him, and I think that he had to come to that himself. And I think Dennis as well, Roxanne's husband, it's wonderful because through our witness and through the deepening of our faith, we've been able to bring our husbands, and even, I've even, perhaps brought other people back to the faith as well, which is quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And obviously ultimately grace from God.
Yes. Yeah, so good. So Jess, I guess there's so many people out there who have not experienced or have been wounded in relationships. What's your advice, I guess, to them? Some thoughts around how they can, some encouragement, I guess.
Yeah. Well, life is tough and, we all have our ups and downs. And sometimes our hearts can be hardened when that happens. It's very easy, I think, to just put a wall up and not let anyone in, but I think in particular through Christ, that's where our healing comes from. But then to have these beautiful women surrounding you and around you, I think that's when, you can chip away at the wall bit by bit, and break it down. And, it takes a lot, I suppose, to trust people again and, whatever people have been through. But I definitely know that having strong faith-filled women in my life has helped with that. Yeah. And that's probably something, Yeah,
it does soften us, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
And I think one of those keys is also vulnerability, that when we're hurt, we can make vows with ourselves that we'll never trust again, like you mentioned, or never sort of share deeply again. But Brené Brown has this beautiful quote where she says, vulnerability is the last thing I want you to see in me, but it's the first thing I look for in you. And when we start to share more deeply, we give other people permission to do the same. And it's really through that vulnerability that we enter into those deeper relationships. Without vulnerability, we stay on that very superficial level.
Absolutely. I can tell you that there's been through the last couple of years that we've known each other. I'm going to say COVID again because ultimately we were in COVID for 2 of the 3 years that we've known each other. So that's where a lot of the struggles obviously happened. But my faith was building and getting deeper. And, you know, obviously the minute that happens, the enemy is always there to try and just come in there and distract you or put a barrier, you know. And it was really tough for me because I had to work from home. So I had no interaction with, you know, physical interaction with anybody. My husband, praise be God, was able to continue working because he was in the building industry. So he would still get up in the morning and he would still go to work. His routine didn't change very much, but mine did, you know. And then I was thrown into the depths of homeschooling. And now, you know, I had to try and work and homeschool my child. And I was very blessed that I had help. I was still able to, you know, bring the younger one to my in-laws or my mum during the day. So I got a little bit there, but, you know, the deeper I got, the enemy was definitely throwing some big curveballs my way. And, you know, and I struggled a lot with the scrolling and kind of getting my head into a lot of the crazy stuff that was going out there about COVID and things like that. So that was really tough. And that was putting a big wedge between myself and my husband as well. He would, you know, he would come home and I would just, I read about this and I saw this and this and that. And he would kind of get a little bit annoyed because I suppose that's all he was hearing at work too. So to come home where he wanted a break, but then I hadn't spoken to anybody that day. He's the first person that I saw walk in the door. So I didn't have that interaction. That's right. So the poor thing, I was kind of coming at him. And that was a big struggle for us because I think I was looking for connection in the wrong places. I was looking for connection on Instagram or Facebook and whatever was kind of throwing out at me. And obviously because of those algorithms, all I saw were those things that I was kind of looking. So there was no break from it. And, you know, the girls kind of helped. We all obviously had our really big things that we were all going through, I think, during that time, you know, and if it wasn't for them, you know, I could tell you that I'm pointing at my coffee table in the front room right now because I remember a moment where I just grabbed my rosary beads and fell down on my knees and did a whole rosary crying because, you know, I was going through something really tough back then and I wasn't expecting this to happen either. But you know, God, through that, God definitely, and again, through the suffering, God just brings about, he'll never use anything for bad. He'll use something always for the good and he'll always bring good out of something. And I really do believe that, you know, those incidents is basically what has strengthened my faith and I think strengthened my marriage as well and my friendships. And I can tell you now that there's probably nothing that the world can throw at me that I know that I can't get through with the help of our Lord and the grace of Our Lady and my beautiful friends. Know that I've got their support. Just before Easter, I had a really challenging time. I'm heavily involved in my local parish and I love it. And I was prepping for all the Easter liturgies and Holy Week, and it was really stressful. I had Julia, who was sick with a throat infection on antibiotics, and then I was sick as well. But I was spending so much time there getting things ready, and the girls were, you know, calling me and asking me, "Are you okay? What can we do?" I'm like, "Thank you so much, but you know, it's nothing that you can do. I have to do this." And they would call me, and I remember distinctly I spoke to Alyssa. I'm like, I don't know why the Lord is like, why God knew I had so much to do. Why did he make me sick? Why did he make Julia sick? And why is he packing just all this extra stuff on me right now when he knows I'm just so busy and I've just got so much to do? And she turned around and she said, because he wants you to trust him. And I'm like, yes. Good point. Thank you. But I would not have gotten that response from anybody else. Any other friendship, they would have said, well, why don't you just turn around and tell them that you can't do it? Yeah. That you quit. But she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, good call. And Roxanne was the same. She called me. She's like, how are you? And I just, vomited out a whole reel of what was going on. Yes. I'm like, this is going on and this is going on. And she said, okay. She said, have you brought God into it? And I said, no, I haven't. And so no other friend would have called me and said that to me. Yes. And I was doing
boldness there, isn't there?
There is.
You have that closeness.
Yes, and it just made it sound so simple. I'm like, yes, I'd forgotten why I was doing this. And
Sorry,
but that's
Jess,
okay. Yeah.
can you just go back? My silly phone, I had turned it off,
Oh,
but it just
that's okay.
can you just say no one else? Yeah, you wouldn't have got that response from anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, no other friendship. Let me start that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would not have gotten that response from any other friend. They would have all told me to give up and just tell them that you can't do it. But they were right there with me, even though they couldn't actually do the work for me. But I know that they were praying for me, and we got through it, and it was all fine. But to have that solidness, and the fact that every single piece of advice that they give me is Christ related.
Yes, it's always pointing you back to Him
Faith,
and to trusting in Him.
absolutely faith related. And, as Catholics, we're supposed to live out our faith, not be the closet Catholics where, our Catholicism comes out on a Sunday when we go to Mass and then it gets put away again. We live it. And that's what I love about it. And just one more point I want to make is that I am so emboldened now with my own faith, seeing seeing Alyssa get up and talk, at conferences and at the sisterhood conference as well. And Roxanne, we went to dinner last week and she was evangelizing to the waitress. We just sat there and it was the best thing ever. What other dinner can you go to with some friends and they're going to just grab a random person and just start talking about Jesus to them?
That's so cool.
But I wouldn't say that I was ashamed to talk about my faith. I wasn't. It was something that was very personal to me. And I suppose I didn't really advertise it very much. But after meeting these women, I actually don't care anymore. And I will try as much as I can to bring Christ into any conversation. Probably still have to learn about a time and place, but sometimes I can go in guns a-blazing just to talk about Jesus. I just know that to have Him in your life helps you with all the struggles that you have. He's the only one that can help you.
Amen.
Yeah,
so
amen.
True.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, it's so beautiful to have this time with you, Jess, this week. And I wish I could rewind the clock 2 weeks ago, because right now, 2 weeks ago, we were getting ready to have lunch together.
Yeah, we were actually, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to really encourage women that if they are struggling with friendship, if they are really experiencing those pangs of loneliness, to get in touch with the sisterhood movement or local parish, or see what retreats are happening, because I think it's when you connect in that church setting that you instantly go to that deeper level, and that's what we're all craving, and such a gift. So it's so beautiful. I'm so blessed to know you and the girls down in Melbourne, and thank you so much.
Oh, that's okay, Karen. We can't wait to see you again in person.
Oh, it's so nice. It's always edifying.
It is. Yeah. Thank you for having me on today.
Ladies, if you are interested in finding out more about the sisterhood movement, can I invite you to visit our website, www.sisterhood.org.au. The sisterhood movement is a national Catholic women's movement here in Australia, and our heart is really to provide a point of connection for women so that they can enter into these deeper bonds of sisterhood with other women of all ages and stages in life, and to grow in their faith and their personal vocation. If you're interested in finding about a Connect group in your area, you can come and send us an email at info@sisterhood.org.au, and we'll get back to you about whether or not there's a group in your area, or we do have starter packs to support you in starting a group. Until next week, ladies, have a beautiful week and God bless you.